Hey, it's AC live streaming here at the House of AC. Thanks for tuning in. Once again, going to have an exciting episode. Lot to cover today. So thank you for tuning in now live. Appreciate it. You can ask questions in real time. Happy to answer them as we go. Or if you're catching this on YouTube later or my AC House of AC Facebook page, thank you for tuning in. And also thank you to those listeners listening in on the podcast. I appreciate you all. I see all your comments and concerns and reviews. Keep it up. I love it. So if you're new, hit follow along, hit like, hit subscribe. We talk real estate, wealth building, passive income, crypto, NFTs. I'm trying to make you rich. That's the thing. It's going to take a little effort. There's no shortcut, but education is going to get you there. And I want to thank our sponsor, Jasmine Mortgage Team, as they sponsor every show. If you're looking for a mortgage, I personally use Jasmine for Jasmine Crenetton. She's been on the show multiple times for my own personal loans, and I recommend them for all my clients as a realtor. Way to get the job done. She's very investor friendly, but also if you're refinancing a primary or anything like that, great person to know. So just reach out, get some quotes at jasminemortgageteam.com. So we're talking about Rich Dad, Poor Dad today. This is the number one book right here. I'm holding it up. And real estate investing, which is very funny because it's not a real estate investing book. I mean, he mentions real estate as a form of passive income, but it's not a real estate investing book, but a lot of real estate investors gravitate towards it because it's, as you'll see, there's a lot of overlap. And obviously you can take these principles and really apply them to real estate. So if you're listening along and you're not interested in real estate, that's okay. We're going to be talking Rich Dad, Poor Dad. You can apply the principles of the book to what you've got going on and what you're doing. But the grand scheme of things is if you're not rich right now, you're probably going to have to make a change, right? Because whatever you're doing might not be working for you, right? And so how are you going to get out of that path? It's going to be making a change. It's going to be maybe that change is the way you think about finances and or the way you do things, the way you spend your money. And we're going to cover all those subjects today. So tune in and ask questions. If you're listening along, you can ask questions in the comments here on YouTube, Facebook, and I will Discord as well, Twitch, all those things. I'll definitely be happy to answer. So and follow along on social media as well at the House of AC. So if you're all new, thank you for tuning in. Okay, so let's get started. Richard Kiyosaki, the number one real estate investing book, not a real estate book, but it's also the number one wealth building book. And I wanted to do a show about this because someone recently told me that my book right here behind my shoulder, House Fire, which stands for Financial Independence, Retire Early, is the Rich Dad, Poor Dad book for real estate. And I never made that connection, but I see it now. I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad for the first time in high school. I don't think it really connected to me in high school. I didn't really have a paying job or anything like that, but obviously some of those seeds were planted in how I live my life now. And reviewing it for this episode and rereading it I see the parallel. So if you're only interested in the real estate aspect, a person out there recently told me that my book is the way to get there. So I'll agree with that. Anyone recommending my book for any reason, you've got my endorsement. So feel free to do that. All right, let's get started. Rich Dad says, first, understand the definition of wealth, the way he defines wealth. Like, because a lot of people say there's rich people and then there's wealthy people. Rich people are professional athletes. Wealthy people are the people who own the professional team. Like there's a difference there, right? The rich people are working and the wealth people have rich people working for them. His definition of wealth is how long can you work? If you quit your job today, what's your runway? How long can you work, or how far can you live into the future off your savings and any sort of passive income you've got going on? What's your situation, right? A wealthy person would be able to live indefinitely. That's his definition of wealth. So you got to figure out how, where do you stand? If you quit your day job, how long is your runway? The FIRE movement has a mathematical formula for this. Is financial independence, retire early. And they basically said, you got to figure out your expenses and multiply it by 25, your annual expenses. So if your annual expenses are $60,000, you multiply that by 25 and you need, $1.5 million and stocks and savings, and that should last you indefinitely on that math. And I've done a previous episode on that called House Fire and Financial Independence. That's not really his thing. He's just saying, it's how you make your money and how you spend your money is what's important. So he compares two things. Obviously, he has a rich dad and a poor dad in his life. So whether this really happened to him or not, I doubt it. He's obviously a really good salesman. And he even has a story in here about being interviewed by a journalist who said her dream was to be a writer. And he offended her because he said, well, I've got the number one book in the world and I don't even know how to write. I'm a salesman. He's like, you got to learn how to be a salesman to be a good writer. Which he rubs people a lot the wrong way, but he has some points. I don't agree with him on everything he says, but he makes you think, and making you think is always important. So rich dad, he has a rich dad and a poor dad in his life. So the way he tells it is his poor dad is his own biological father, very educated, went to school, got master's, doctorate. He's all about education first. Be a hard worker, and then go get a solid job, always be working for someone, and you'll be set for life. You'll be good to go. And you're just always working on your skill set of education and really becoming the best employee that you can. Which is probably most people's advice. Well, a lot of parents give that advice: get good grades, go to school, go work hard, and no risk, right? And you're good to go until you lose your job or the company goes under or your skill set is obsolete by robots, right? But I'm getting ahead of the point. Rich dad, he has a friend named Mike. He went to a private school and he was surrounded by a bunch of wealthy people. So the way that his friends' parents talked to him was completely different than the conversations he was having at home. So one of his best friend's dads, he called him his rich dad, would mentor him and his best friend on how to make wealth. And the way his rich dad put it is, you get a great education and work hard, which is the same thing that the poor dad was saying. But the poor dad was saying, you do that so you can go get a high paying job. And the rich dad was like, no, you do that so you can go get high paying assets. Learn to buy businesses instead of working for businesses. And we're going to get into that because right now I know that's turning off a lot of people. That's scaring a lot of people. I don't want to run a business. And just hear me out. Just keep listening to this live stream and we're going to get to things that are manageable and not completely overwhelming. And no one's saying that you have to turn into the CEO or a startup founder to change your financial wealth. That is not the point. So don't, when they say buying a business or buying high paying assets or passive income, it doesn't mean you got to be some crazy side hustler who's working around the clock. Just keep listening. We're going to cover all the ways to get there. And obviously feel free to ask questions as we go. Okay. So the difference comes down to, the main difference is understanding, do you know the difference between assets and liabilities? A lot of people say yes, and then a lot of people get it wrong. All right. So an asset, the way Richard Kiyosaki explains it, and the liability is that an asset puts money in your pocket and a liability takes money out of your pocket. So if you've got a car and it's got a car note, it's taking money out of your pocket. That is a liability. It's an outgoing expense. Here's the rub: is your house, your primary residence, is that an asset or is that a liability? What do you think? Well, poor dad thinks that your house is an asset. And rich dad says your house is a liability. And you might say, whoa, wait a minute, Ellen, you tell us to buy real estate all the time. What is that? So this is the difference. Your primary residence is a liability, right? You're living in the house and you're outgoing money. It's an outgoing expense that you have to have enough money each month to cover that outgoing expense, or you're going to lose your house. It could still be going up in value, appreciation and value, but the month-to-month payment is still there, right? That's completely different than real estate investing, where you're buying a house that you're not living in, but the only purpose to buy that house is because your liability is $500 a month, your mortgage payment, but your income on that $700 a month. So you're actually making $200. That's an asset. That's the rich dad asset. And so it's really looking at everything in your life as either an asset and a liability. The poorer mindset, middle class mindset is a lot of times they're buying liabilities that they think they're assets due to lack of financial education. But the rich are always accumulating and buying as many assets as possible that generate some income for them, and that income will obviously cover all their liabilities. Um, let's see here. So yes, let's talk about some of these biggest liabilities that people have. So a car, obviously, you need it, you have to have it. That's an expense. But a rich mindset would say, well, if you've got a car and you're not using it on the weekends or at night, then you put it up on Turo, right? And or rent it out to someone, an Uber driver or a food delivery driver, so that it's paying for itself or earning you money when you're not owning it. So that's sort of a way to do it. If you got a house, obviously you can rent it out. I did a passive income episode last week that you should check out, but there was 5 things that you could do to turn your liability of a house into an asset. Depending if you had a pool, there's an app called Swimply, which allows you to swim or rent out your swimming pool for birthday parties and other people who just want access to a pool. Turn your liabilities into an asset. There's something called Sniff Spot, which is if you've got something that's dog friendly, maybe it's a fenced yard or a lot of acreage or a pond, and you can rent it out to dog owners through Sniff Spot. Spacer is one if you've got an extra parking spot that you could rent out. Obviously Airbnb, you can rent out extra bedrooms. There's something called Stash, sort of like a mustache, but it's for self-storage. So if you got an extra garage or a basement, you can rent out storage. So all these things are how rich people would think is, how can I turn all my liabilities into assets, earn me some extra money, put some extra money in my pocket. The rich love to generate income while they sleep. You keep hearing this. How do I make income while I sleep? What are assets? Okay, I get it, Alan. I want to buy assets. I know the rich people buy assets. Give me some examples of assets. Richard Kiyosaki talks about businesses, stocks, bonds, royalties, notes, real estate. So let's dig a little bit deeper into that. So businesses, you can buy into businesses either obviously through stocks. If you're buying stocks, they could go up, they could go down in value, but it's investing. But if you buy dividend paying stocks, obviously that's a way to create some income while you sleep. Same with bonds that usually pay some sort of dividend. Not a whole lot, but it's also low risk. And, it's good to diversify into bonds, earn some money that way. Royalties, I've talked about a lot of times. You can have royalties from music that you've made, past YouTube videos that are monetized. You can buy NFTs where you're buying into royalties of a musician who's earning you income. I've talked about that on a previous NFT show. NFTs in music, if you want to check that one out. Notes, which is just basically loans. A note is a mortgage on a house. You could you can buy other people's mortgages, and then you just get their mortgage payment coming to you and service their loan payments. That exists. That's called note investing. The risk is if they don't pay, then you got to foreclose and then you own that house. So it's collateralized. You don't have a tremendous amount of risk. The difference between that and real estate investing is real estate could appreciate in value, but your note is obviously going down in value as it gets paid off each month. Real estate rentals is obviously definitely a good category to earn sort of small businesses. But I want to talk about a couple other small businesses that I've seen in the past and recently that sort of excite me, and I've actually considered jumping into it just because it sounded fun and to have a story to say, but to share, but it also put some money in your pocket. One that I don't know, I think it's because I watch a lot of these videos, but in my feed, my Facebook feed, my TikTok feed, I get all sorts of business pitches and franchise pitches and stuff because they know I crave this content, but so it might not be on your feeds. But one is this frozen ice stand. So, if you need a bag of ice, typically you go to the gas station, right? And you just try to drive to the nearest gas station. But there's these companies out there that will basically say, if you've got any commercial lot that has water access, we will put basically a drive-through or drive-up ice bag company on that lot. So let's imagine you've got a busy street corner, nothing's there, or maybe it's in between 2 gas stations and everyone has to drive past a certain spot to get to the gas station. acquire this empty lot. It doesn't need to be big. It just needs to be big enough for like a little shed that you would buy at Home Depot, that sort of size thing, and maybe one car to pull in off the road. And as long as there's water hookup, it's basically like a vending machine for ice. You put in your $5, it cranks up and it kicks out a bag of ice, right? And this little startup company, I want to say it was like $10,000. Like, sure, you got to go buy the land, right? Or rent the land. I guess you could even buy the rent the land, but then you buy this $10,000 franchise that does the vending machine, one time fee, and then you're just making, 50, $100 a week, however many people need ice in this little town. I would imagine summer is a little bit more party season when the weather's nice, warmer climates. There's no maintenance. You don't do anything. You just sit there and collect rent checks, and you're good to go. Like who would not want a bunch of these little, I call them ATM machines or money trees, all over town. It's just one-stop shop, really easy, no employees. There's businesses like that all over the place. Growing up, I had a friend's dad who had this snow cone business that only operated in the summer. And it was great because it was all he would do is go to all the major shopping malls, the strip centers, and say, I just want to rent one parking space. And so he built a little shack that took up only the size of one parking spot. And it was out in the middle, away from all the stores, but that's fine. And then a car could drive up, park next to it, and get out. And it would be one high school employee working there, paying whatever, $15 an hour. But they would, and just bags, a cooler full of bags of shaved ice. And you got like 3 or 4 syrups that they would pour on top of it, selling them for $5 each, right? So as long as you were selling 3 an hour, that would cover the employee. Let's call it 4 an hour, probably to cover whatever the monthly rental of a parking spot is, probably a couple $100. But you've got these littered all over town. It's a seasonal business. You just do it in the summer when the kids are out of school, so you have cheap labor, and then also it's hot. At least where I grew up in Atlanta, Georgia, and so you would just want to go eat those snow cones all day, and you didn't have to do anything fancy. It was a shack, and like most businesses, like when I go eat barbecue, the more rinky dinky it is, the better the food tastes. Same with like Indian food at street huts and wherever you travel. It's always the most rinky dinky thing. But he did this every summer, so I would imagine this was a very lucrative business for him, which didn't take his effort at all. Maybe the first weekend setting them all up, and the last weekend taking them all down. That was the owner's work and providing shaved ice here and there. But I'm sure you could have an employee handle that for you. Vending machines are the same way. I had another friend, I saw some parallels. I grew up in a really wealthy suburb. My family wasn't. My family was all the definition of the poor dads. They were all about education. They were both teachers, but everyone around me seemed to be entrepreneurs. And another one in my life, when you start up a restaurant, sports bar or whatnot, which I owned. I owned a bar at some point in my life. It was 25, and you're learning these things that you have to get a jukebox. If you want a jukebox, video games. If you're that type of bar that's going to have that clientele that wants to, top golf or race car driving or something for the kids, the crane, the coin machines, right? But I'm in the restaurant business. I'm not in the vending machine business. The game, those games cost $5,000, $6,000 a piece. At least the good ones are. Jukebox, that's some money. I learned this once I had a restaurant, that these were all vendors that would come to me. And then it made me remember that my friend's dad was doing this to other restaurants. So basically the business here is, hey, I'll go buy the Top Shop video game, and can I just put it in your business? And it's sometimes, hey, we'll split whatever comes out of the machine 50-50, right? So businesses are always going to say yes to that, because then they have no expenses. Like, they don't want to spend $5,000 on a video game, but they want a video game to keep people, hanging in their bar drinking beer. So if you're willing to output $5,000 and you have talk to a sports bar to say, let me put it in there, and we'll shit, I'll come every week and we'll split the quarters. Of course, people are going to do that. Same with all vending machines. Every vending machine that you typically go to, whether it's in your university, in the office floor of your company, I promise you that's most likely not operated by whoever runs the company in that place. It's a third party vendor that comes in and says to the property manager, hey, can I put some vending machines on your property? And we'll split the profits. Sometimes it's 25-75, both ways. It's a negotiation. And so that's a business you can be in that you probably didn't even know it existed. And it takes showing up once a week, refilling those vending machines. I had a friend in college who did this for earplugs at clubs. If whenever you're at a music venue and it's really loud, he just had a little gumball machine of earplugs, and all he had to do was go by basically every month, refill it up, and take the money out. So these are really interesting sort of businesses out there that do not take much effort and making money in your sleep. And you could probably outsource 100% of it, but maybe outsource 99% and it takes 1% of your effort. Obviously, that's more than working 40 hours a week at your day job. So there's a lot of businesses out there that are interesting, and the list goes on and on. So that's what rich people do, and that's how they think. They also buy stocks, bonds, royalties, notes, real estate along with those businesses or any sort of income generating things. Let's keep going. All right. So he compares 4 different phrases that Rich Dad says compared to his Poor Dad. Poor Dad says, study hard so you can find good company to go work for. Rich Dad says, study hard so you can find a company to buy. So what does that mean? So, if you're going to be in school, education is important. Both dads are saying education is important, but it's what are you studying? Rich Dad says you should study accounting, investing, market analysis, local laws, things that you could apply to businesses. Basically business education goes a long way. And a poor dad will just say study anything. Poor dad saying the reason I'm not rich is because I have kids. Poor dad saying I just got to keep my day job because I've got kids. I worry about them. I want them to be safe and secure, have a roof over their head, pay for college, things like that. Rich Dad says, well, the reason I must be rich is because I have kids. So you have to think differently. You have to do things differently so that I can be rich for the sake of my kids. That's the way the rich dad thinks. And that means I have to learn. I have to be financially educated. I can't be ignorant. I've got to have my money work for me rather than me working for money. And if I do that, I'm there for my kids more, right? I'm not spending my time at a 9-to-5 job. I'm home and giving them my full attention. Poor dad says, I don't want to take any risk. And that's where most people freeze. It's too risky to do any of these things that Richard Kiyosaki is talking about or things that I might talk about. Rich Dad says, well, you know what? I got to learn to manage risk. I know there's risk. I got to learn to manage it because the worst scenario is taking no risk, right? If I don't take any risk, I'm going to be at my day job 40 hours a week. I'm going to be stressed. I'm going to be going in debt to further my skill set at my day job so I can get a higher paying job. And you get stuck in this rat race of spending more money, making more money, and then you end up spending more money, whether it's on your kids or on your life. I deserve a bigger house. I deserve a bigger boat. That's the mindset of working for someone else, making someone else rich and saying, well, if I just do XYZ, I'll get a pay raise. And then if I do XYZ, I'll get another pay raise. And you're not putting money into assets. What you're doing is you're having a higher income, and that income is going into more and more liabilities. You get the bigger car, the second car, you get the lake house, you get the boat. These are not assets. You're just getting more and more liabilities, and you're getting more and more. You're just the rat wheel gets bigger, but you're still on the gerbil wheel. So poor dad saying number 4, I can't afford that. Okay, I like all of what you're saying. I like these businesses. I like the stocks. I want to buy NFTs that kick me off royalty. I want to go invest from real estate. I can't afford that. A rich dad says that's not how you look at it. It's how can I afford that? I want these things. How can I afford that? And you learn, what does it take to buy a business? Well, a lot of people don't know, like you see something in these franchises that, well, I don't have $10,000, but you can get small business loans like the SBA out there. And there's small credit unions and local banks. They want to give back to the community. They're required to lend a certain amount of money to the local community. And so instead of saying, I can't afford that, flip it around. How can I afford that? A lot of I have that all the time. I want to buy that. I want to buy that house. I want to buy that apartment building. I don't have any money. I just bought an apartment building last week. So how am I going to afford that? And so, you get creative. Talk to, can I refinance something else to pay for this? Can I sell something else? Do I cash out, refi that? Can I get a loan off my portfolio credit line, home equity credit line on my primary? I want, you figure out how to afford that. It might come down to, well, maybe I need partners. Maybe the only way I can afford this is partners, but I'd rather have a thin slice of pie of income pie coming in than zero, right? If your option is zero pie because I can't afford it, things are not going to change. But if you're saying, I want this, I like it, I'll take a thin slice of pie, but I have to have 5 partners and raise money, then do it. And because all those pie slices are going to eventually line up. You're going to eventually have 5 pies made up of a bunch of tiny slices of pies. And all that's going to replace your income. This is how the poor and middle class work, according to the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And first, you work for your employer. If you've got a day job, specialize your skill set to get paid more. But you can only leverage one person's time, right? So let's assume that you're a cardiac surgeon, and you worked harder, went through med school and everything, and you're a cardiac surgeon. You get paid the most. You have the most expensive specialty. I don't know if cardiac surgeons get paid the most, but I assume they get paid pretty well. Well, how do they get richer? They can only work more hours. Like you're limited because you're one person, and you've got this specialized education. You can go from working 40 hours a week to 60 hours a week. That's how you make more money. Once you reach the pinnacle of your career, you can work from 60 hours a week to 80 hours a week. I don't want a cardiac surgeon working on me who's working 80 hours a week. So if you're just specializing in your skill set and that's how you're going to get rich, you're never going to be wealthy. You could be rich. You're not going to be wealthy. Wealthy, again, is the definition of what's your runway if you quit your day job, right? That cardiac surgeon probably has a lot of medical debt. College loans for his medical education, that he probably has a lot of cars and a fancy house. That runway is not going to be very long. So that surgeon's going to have to work for a long time. So that's one way to just sort of think. That's how poor people think. I'm just going to make more of my day job. So what that does is, first, you're working for an employer, right? And then secondly, you're working for the government, because whatever that income is, 25, 30% of it goes to taxes. So if you do that math, what like roughly 25, 30% of the work year of the month of the year is, you're working from January 1st to March 16th. All those days just go to the government. If you look at it that way, like you don't get paid for yourself until March 17th of every single year. We're not even there yet. It's February 24th. So just when I record this, so just think, if you're listening to this, your first 3 months and some change, 2.5 months, you're basically, that entire income is going to the government in form of taxes. This is how a poor dad would teach their kids to go through life. And then third, so that's who, first, you're working for your employer, and you're selling your time to an employer. Second, you're selling your time and employment to a government to pay taxes. Third, then you're paying a bank. So outside of that, whatever's left over, then your money goes to a bank, meaning your mortgages or any car notes or any loans. So they get that piece of the pie, so that depending where you are, that might be from March 16th to April 30th or longer, most likely it probably gives you till October or November. And so that gives you 1 or 2 months of extra income for yourself, because everyone's got their hands in your pocket when you work this way. And whatever's left over is when you start working for yourself. And so then you might have money left over to put it in a 401k, put it into savings. You're treating yourself last. Your money reaches you last. First, it's your employer, your money and time. First, it goes to your employer. Then the government takes their taxes out of their paycheck. Then it takes the bank takes their cut, any sort of fixed liabilities you've got going out. Think of it, maybe your utility bills, any sort of recurring subscriptions, all that gets taken out. And then what's left over, it's like, great, now I've got money I can go buy myself. That's not how rich people think. Rich people do it the opposite. They say, I'm going to pay myself first. I'm going to buy an asset with all my money first, and then let's see what's left over. So let's talk through that. What does that mean? Well, when people say, rich people think in terms of corporations. An LLC, limited liability corporation. That's all it is. But when you say, hey, do you own a corporation? People are like, well, that's what rich people do. So what does that mean? Well, when people think of corporations, they think of a skyscraper with a name of a company on it, right? That's a corporation. They think of Netflix as a corporation, something that they're paying a subscription to. These are all sort of massive corporate. Google's a corporation, or Alphabet. All these things are how people think, how poor people think of what a corporation is, but that's not what rich people think. A corporation is this. You can start a corporation by going to your Secretary of State website. Whatever state you're in, just search state name, Secretary of State, create a corporation. Here in Georgia, it's $150. And I have dozens of them, right? And it doesn't mean you even have to have a brick and mortar place. It doesn't mean you have to have any employees. You can go create a corporation for $150. It's just the way he says in the book is just, it's a piece of file. It's a piece of paper in a file folder in a cabinet at the Secretary of State office. I think now it's just a line in a database somewhere online. Alan Corey, corporation 123, and here's my address. You paid $150. Great, you're a corporation for 1 year. Come back next year, and it's a $25 renewal fee. You can create your own corporation. Create your own corporation for whatever businesses that you're doing. If you're doing in consulting work, if you want to start any sort of these startups, you can be a corporation. You don't need to have. It doesn't take much to be a corporation. Okay. So why would you want to do this? Well, let's think about how corporations pay taxes. Corporations pay taxes on profits. So people pay taxes on what their income comes in. If you're a person, right? I just walked through that. And then whatever's left over, you pay the bank. And then whatever's left over, you pay your liabilities. And hopefully there's something left over. A corporation says, hey, we're a corporation. We're a business. So we only get taxed on our income. And so if our business is making $10,000 in revenue. Maybe you're mowing lawns on the weekend and you're very successful and you're making $10,000, but you've got $5,000 of expenses for lawnmowers and gasoline and leaf bagging and leaf blowers and employees. At the end of the month, you spend $5,000 of expenses and you got a marketing budget. You took some clients out to dinner, try to win their business. You have to pay for marketing for your podcast, whatever it is on landscaping, growing a landscaping business. Add up all those expenses, right? Whatever's left over, that's a $5,000 profit, $10,000 income minus $5,000 expenses. Now you're getting taxed on that $5,000 profit. Completely different, right? Before, if you're an individual, you get taxed on on the $10,000 of income. But a corporation gets taxed on income minus expenses, what's left over is profit, then we tax that. So you just cut your tax bill in half. So this is what rich people do in terms of avoiding taxes. And because they don't pay themselves high income, they run everything through a corporation. And that's just because they understand. It's not greed. It's they understand financial. They have financial literacy. They understand the rules and the regulations, and they're saying, how can I get this to work for me? So that's the mindset of a rich dad. He paints the point very clearly. Individuals earn money, pay taxes on that money, and live with what's left. The corporation, on the other hand, earns money, spends everything it can, and is taxed on anything that's left. So the rich are hardly taxed with this mindset. And a lot of these points in the book get repeated, but it's phrased in different ways. He goes on to say, the poor is your profession is your income. Whatever you do for a job, that's what you make, right? And the rich are saying, no, my profession is not my income. My assets are my income. And whatever my profession is what I enjoy to do. So I'll put myself in this situation. My income comes from my rentals, right? That pays for everything. But what I enjoy to do, live streaming, that's my profession, right? Completely different. I'm not, you know, podcasting and live streaming because I look at it as a way to make money. It'll hopefully make money for me one day, and that's fine. But because I'm doing it and I enjoy it, I'll probably be better at it than if it was my job. And so that goes for you too. Anything that is your passion and that you would do for free, you're actually going to make tremendous amounts of money doing that because your passion is going to drive you to be successful. And I was the type of person where I would never working for someone else would in a corporate environment. I'd never put in my full effort because wasn't my passion, right? I would do a good enough job to keep my job, and somehow I'd get promoted. I think it was just because I was likable and I actually showed up to meetings, and any sort of task given to me, I would do it. But I put in the bare minimum effort, and I couldn't imagine if I actually was passionate about working a 9 to 5 job, what I could accomplish. But I'm sort of glad that I didn't, that I left, because reading this book again and reviewing this book, you're never going to get out of that trap if you're working for someone else. He goes on to say, we're covering a lot of territory here, and I think I'm giving the gist of it just enough so that you don't have to read the book, but I would always encourage you to read the book anyway. Goes on to say that most people live in two emotional states, and those emotional states are fear and or greed. He also describes greed as desire. So if people can't make this mindset switch because of fear mostly, and or greed. So what he says is, hey, it's too risky for me to leave my day job, too risky to put money into an asset that might lose money because I don't have any extra income each month. Things like that keep them from being held back. But also they're greedy, or their desire for wanting more is sort of like, I want that bigger boat, I want that bigger house, I want to go on more vacations. And so in order to want those things, I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing, but I'm just going to work harder. Instead of putting 40 hours a week at my day job, I want to put in 50. I'm going to go get that master's degree so that I can get paid more. And so what it does is you're not making the right changes. You need to take that fear and say, what the fear should be staying at the day job forever until you die. The fear should be that, wow, putting money into an asset that pays me money will overcome my fears of that, right? It's like, if I have enough assets, and this is where I got unlocked. I finally had enough assets that were paying more than my day job. Talk about unlocking all my fear. I stayed at my job because I was fearful that I needed it. But in the meantime, I was investing in assets. And then once my assets started paying more than my day job, that's FU money, right? You can go to your boss and say FU on any assignment, and you can just keep saying that till you get fired. But you don't care because you have enough passive income and assets paying for all your liabilities and all your lifestyle. And so that's how does he phrase it here? I wrote it down. He constantly hears people saying that they want to be rich, but when it's suggested that money can be made from real estate, their initial reaction is, but I don't want to fix toilets. Richard believes it's ironic that they're more concerned about trivial things like fixing toilets rather than what lies ahead in real estate. So what do you want more, to be rich or to avoid fixing toilets? I mean, that's what it comes down to. And I've never fixed a toilet in my life. I don't even know how to fix a toilet. And I've been doing this for 22 years. Just whatever, you pay someone to do it, right? So people but that's fear that's driving them. The fear of fixing toilets is stronger than the reward of being rich through real estate. And so you've got to really recognize where your fear lies, and are you going to let your fear control your life? So that was a big emotional. He's like, do not make emotional decisions. Let fear drive what you want, and also greed, which I find that funny. Greed and desire, he said, was a lot of people call rich people greedy, right? But the way he sort of phrases it is, no, the greed keeps people at their day job because they want to keep earning more so that they can spend more. And then rich people, they just want to have more and more assets generating income for them. And it all comes down to having multiple income streams. If you read the book Millionaire Next Door, or most rich people, anyone you would consider rich or wealthy, they have multiple income streams. What I mean by that is, you know, the, you know, I've got income coming from book sales. It's not a ton of money. At most $100 a month, but it's something. One day I hope to have income from YouTube and podcasting, right? Those are income streams. I've got real estate investments coming in. I'll flip homes, like there's all these different things that you have to have multiple streams of income. And even if it's just real estate investing is one stream of income, then what you do is have two houses. That's two streams of income. Then three, that's three streams of income. Four streams of income. Just accumulate as many different assets or income streams, and you will have enough to cover your liabilities, and you can leave your day job, and that's how you get really wealthy. And the definition of wealthy, what's your runway, right? Once your income streams cover your liabilities, you've got an endless runway for the rest of your life. Which is obviously the goal here. What else does he get into in this book? People work for the joy that money can buy. This is the greed explanations for people, why people want to have a higher paying job. They want things that create more comfort for them, more security for them, but they're always going to have a higher and higher desire. So people stay in their day jobs because they desire more, and it's unsustainable, right? Buying a bigger house doesn't make you happier. People think it will. Buying a faster car or a second car or a third car, that doesn't make you happier. But people keep working and saying, oh, if I can get from $80,000 to $100,000 at my job, then I'll be happy. And then what happens? You get more liabilities, and you're like, oh, wait, I'm still in the same place. Oh, I need $125,000 at my day job. And then what happens? You have lifestyle creep that kind of creeps up with you. And then you want to, I've earned it. I've earned it. Now I make $125,000. Now I want to live in a more expensive part of town because I've earned it. And so you're just constantly wanting more. So that's greed and desire, keeping people in the poor mindset. So you got to learn to understand the power of money and not be afraid of it. Ignorance to money makes you a slave for money and constantly working. He has a chapter that's, makes a very clear point. How many people learned about finances in high school? Like, why are we not taught how to fill out tax returns? How are we not taught to start a business in middle school or high school, or the benefits of a corporation? Like, this should be taught in schools. People have a lot of theories about this. I mean, obviously teachers, his dad is a teacher. My parents were teachers. Their mindset is, oh, you go get a good education and then you can have a job. And so that's what they teach their students, right? But really, we should be teaching people how to be entrepreneurs. And that's going to give them the most, power, the most happiness. And again, you don't have to be the startup bro culture. It's starting these sort of passive income streams. Get some real estate with a property manager. It's completely passive. Invest in bonds that pay you a dividend, or stocks that pay you in a dividend. Get some of these franchises where, what Shaquille O'Neal and Peyton Manning, they own like 40 Papa John's pizza places each, and Shaquille's got like 10 Dunkin' Donuts or Krispy Kremes, I should say. Have you ever seen Shaq or Peyton Manning working these things? No. Like, they'll do the commercials, sure, but like it just seems overwhelming to you to say, why don't you buy a Papa John's franchise? It's $35,000. You can go get a small business loan. And you're like, well, I know I can't leave my day job. I got to manage that. Shaq's the busiest man in the world. He does every single possible commercial. He's on TV every night talking about basketball. It must not take any time for him to manage 40 pizza places and a dozen donuts. franchises, right? Like there's managers in place. There's, I'm sure you can have a property manager type aspect for these franchises. I think Chick-fil-A makes you work on site like that. There's some that have certain rules and some that don't. I mean, you can buy a mattress firm, the mattress firm for, there's actually a new mattress firm, why is there a mattress firm every, corner on every city? The profit margins are huge. You can get an appointment only mattress firm. I think it's like $10,000. And what it is, you just buy a storage unit, a bunch of mattresses, appointment only, no employees. And they have to make an appointment. You show up and you sell this mattress. They love it because it's super cheap, because you're not buying it from a brick and mortar where a mattress is all sort of worked into the price, the rent they have to pay, and the employees that have to be there. I mean, you can make, there's just so many opportunities out there for you. You just got to look for it. Like, these are things that are pitched to me all the time. And, it's possible to outsource a lot of this, think of it, if it's service-based business, there's companies out there who, will have something on Upwork. Upwork's a freelance website. Like, if you go up there and say, hey, I want to get a graphic design from an agency, I want to do SEO blog writing from an agency, what you're doing is you're talking to one person there who says, great, I do this. I've been doing this for 2 years. And, I charge $75 an hour. And you look at the reviews and it's all 5-star reviews and it's great. And then you're like, how is this person have the time to do all this work that they're doing? Like, you just see review after review after review. And then you hire them and you figure out what they've really done is on the exact same website. They go outsource that work to someone in a foreign country, the Philippines, for $3 an hour, right? Or Vietnam, or somewhere for $2 an hour, $3 an hour, but they're charging me $10 an hour. And they just get the spread. So they're not doing the work. They're just being the middleman. And so obviously there's some work that needs to be done to get the right people who can actually follow through. And they've got to train these people that they probably never met face to face. And so their entire job is just to solicit quotes and be the face of the company. And then they've got this whole staff of people working $2, $3 an hour. And those people are thrilled because $2, $3 an hour is good income in their countries. And they're just the front face, right, of a huge corporation. And that had no startup costs. They don't even have to hire anyone. There's just so many ways to make money out there if you just kind of think like a rich person. And I love it. I love it. I guess the risk for that person is if that person doesn't show up or does a poor job, they got to step in and do the work, or they get a bad review. But if you're doing enough volume, then it doesn't matter. Just you can scale quickly, and that's not even forming a corporation, but you could run it through a corporation, and then all those expenses, you can write off, a lot of stuff, business expenses that way. I love opportunities like this. I always love, how can we leverage money and time and your skill set to, turn it into something you never thought was possible. All right. So further, some other points Richard covers here. The goal should be that I no longer work for money, but money works for me. And the general synopsis of the book: the poor work for money for the rest of their lives. Rich constantly think, how can I have my money work for me? So there you go. That it's all about trading your skill set and trying to outsource it. If you're a cardiac surgeon, you can't get 20 cardiac surgeons in Philippines to work for you at a discount and scale your business. You're limited to you and how many hours you can work. But think about what your skill set is and see if you can create a company like that. Like, if you're a graphic designer, like, sure, you can be the face of it. You understand good graphic design. Then you get a team of freelancers behind you, and you teach them certain tools to use or your company's way, and you grow your business that way. Virtual assistants are, like I said, $2, $3, $5. They can be cold calling for you. And I as a realtor, I get called. There's 5 times a week, a company calling me saying, hey, we're going to get you real estate leads. You want to pay us $100 a month or $75 a month? We'll bring you real estate leads. And, no, I don't want your real estate leads, because all they do is then they hire this source of people cold calling owners and emailing them and postcards. Um, you maybe that's what you want to do, but that person in the middle is not actually doing that. They've hired someone to call me, and then if I say yes, then they've hired someone to take that yes and turn it into a product that they can sell. And it's just on autopilot. It's just this machine that runs by itself. So those are the things that the way rich people think. And there you go. That's the synopsis of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Again, House Fire, my book right above my shoulder here. Financial Independence Real Estate is how I did it through real estate only. And I'm now looking to branch out in some of these other business opportunities because they're fun. And they're constantly in my feed, and I want to do them so I can teach you guys about them. And that's how retired athletes think about it this way. Retired athletes, I said the Shaq and Peyton Manning, once they're done working, their income stops. So what do they have to do? They have to do commercials. They have to talk about sports. Those are still jobs, right? But if they buy these pizza franchises and companies and mattress firms and things like that, put them on autopilot, they're not working 9 to 5. They're not showing up at the day job. They probably don't even know who the manager is. If I go into the Krispy Kreme that Shaq owns here in Atlanta, I promise you, none of them know who how do you reach the owner? Like, none of them have Shaq's number to call. There's just layers of people that will do it for you, and he still makes money on top of that. So, things to think about. And if you got questions, let me know. Thanks for tuning in at the House of AC. Follow me at any time. We're sponsored by Jasmine Mortgage Team. If you need a mortgage, go learn how to buy some real estate. Jasmine Mortgage Team. She's been on the show multiple times, friend of the show. I love your likes and reviews. So please, thank you for tuning in. Like and subscribe. If you got a comment, I see a lot of people tuning in right now. Ask your questions. I'm happy to answer your questions. And I live stream daily. Follow me at TikTok, Instagram, and I want you to be rich. And then we've got free time, right? You've got free time. You're working on your passion. If you're working in your passion, doing something just because you love it, because you don't need it for a day job, you're going to be super successful at it. You're going to rise to the top, and then you're going to make more money than you ever thought possible, because you're not working for money. You're working because you love it. It doesn't feel like work. That should be the goal. And it's crazy. Like, we talked yesterday to Robert Leonard. Check out that episode. He bought an RV for $0 down, has a $500 mortgage payment. He rents it out on RV rentals for $700. It costs him nothing to now get $200 of income that pays for his, whatever bill he wants to pay for. There's so many opportunities out there. You just have to change your mindset. Don't let fear and greed drive your decision to keep you where you are. You have to shift the way you're thinking, or you're going to continue being in the place that you are. And so learn to manage risk and not avoid risk. Avoiding risk means inaction, and inaction is not going to produce new results. All right, guys. Love you. Thanks for tuning in.